Hello, everyone, again. So the last lesson, we talked about the importance of components over app components, right? And this is the basic component for Angular. So will our project only be app components? Well, of course not. We can add different functionality to our project by creating new components. And to do this, well, we're now going to learn how to add components to our project. So let's just say we're preparing a page where a company's products live, and we want to create a list of these products and some descriptive information about some of the products. So now I'm going to create a new folder under the app folder to proceed properly and cleanly. Now, since this folder is related to products, I am making the folder name products, and I'll create the folder under the app folder because usually Angular-related applications are stored underneath this folder. So now we're going to create a new file under this folder. And I'll right-click and new file, and this file name is products.component.ts. Now notice while naming, I'll write the folder and file name the same. Of course, this is not a rule, but it is a very good method for organizing as well as for convenience and clarity. And see the file with the TS extension. All right, so this is indeed important. Okay, so now we have an empty component file. How do we create the component structure? So first of all, the component that we created is actually a TypeScript class. And I'm creating a class for it. In order to export this class outside the file, I'll write export at the beginning. Right, so now we have created a normal TypeScript class. Now, up until now, we haven't said anything to Angular, telling it that it's a component. So we should declare that this structure we create is actually a component. So how do you do that? Well, just like this. @component decorator. That's right. This is where the component decorator comes into play. So we can use this decorator to tell Angular that this file is a component. Now, decorators always take the @ sign in front of them. So now when we use this decorator, it gives us a warning. Oh no, why, you say? But it's just because TypeScript didn't know about this decorator from the start. So that means that we have to import the component. And then write from. The package we imported is @angular/core. Now we can say that this package contains the basic functions of Angular. And yes, it's thanks to this @component decorator. The TypeScript component knows, and then the file can be compiled as JavaScript. However, the file is still empty, and it hasn't gained any of the functionality so far. So we got to stay together on this, all right? Because we first have to start filling in the class. So what'll I do? I'll write selector. So the HTML tag that we'll write here when using this component and other components, right? And look at this. If we write it in this way, we can write it like this when calling it in other places. Or if we put a dot in front of it like this, we call it as a div class. Or if we put a hash sign in front of it, we could write the ID here, right? So it's the same as CSS logic. But now I'm just going to use it this way. So we have now created the selector for later use in other components. Next up, we have another important part, which is the template. And this is actually the HTML page of our component. So for this, first I create a new file under this folder. And don't forget to write the .html at the end. All right, so this is our file that we will keep our HTML code in. And look at this. I write in the template URL and the path of our HTML file in the component. Since these two files are under the same folder, I can write it like this. So now let's add a simple code to this HTML file. Now we have simply created our component. So let's have a look now. When we create a component, we need two basic files, TypeScript and HTML. So now Angular uses different components to create web pages and uses modules to combine different parts, right? So that means that we have to notify the app module of this component that we've now created, because modules bundle different parts into one package, and Angular offers this package. So now we need to declare this component we created to the app module so that Angular can use this component. So for now, we're going to prepare our applications on a single module, and that's the app module. And then as applications grow, multiple modular structures can be used, but for now, we'll continue on a single module. Now we're going to talk about these topics in detail while explaining the module topic. So let's open up the app module and we can see how to add our component. So when we look at the content of this place, we see an empty class. And there is some other information that's been imported, and we see the ng module decorator imported from @angular/core, and we see that 4 different features are used in this: declarations, imports, providers, and Bootstrap. Now we've talked about Bootstrap before, and it specifies which component to start with first, and then what application is run. Now it was communicating with our index.html page, so we don't have to make any changes here. And now there is already the app component in the declarations directory. Even though it is in the Bootstrap directory, we've got to specify it here because it's a component of our application. So we specify the components that we're going to use here. So now we also add our new component to this section. And when we add the component, we need to import it. When we come to it and press enter, we can automatically import. Now, of course, we could always write it ourselves, but using it this way is so much easier. So now TypeScript knows where to find this component, because by importing it, we specified where this file is. So just like that, it's time to use the component. Now you remember the selector for this component, don't you? Let's look at it again. So here we will use this selector in app.component.html. So I'll open this file and I'm adding a little thing here. Now I'm calling the newly added component, and look, I'm writing this like a tag. Now, we already talked about this earlier, so I'll save the changes and run our project. So now I'm using the ng-serve /open command for this. And just like that, our project opens automatically in the browser. So what do you think of that? Our project is now open, and here is the part from the app.component.html And just below is the content of the HTML page of the newly added component. So we can see it by saying inspect. And look at that. We can see which file they've come from. So there you have it, my friends. That is components. Adding a component has taught us how to use it. So I think that's enough for now. I want to see you in the next lesson, though.